So, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Development with Techniques podcast. And today, we're going to talk about drugs. Drugs are good, very good, very, no, stop it. Suggestible. If this is even a word, I don't fucking know. Is it suggestible a word?
I'm not sure. You want to elaborate on that?
It was a joke. No. But I want to talk about stress indeed. Sometimes I do think that stress can be useful regarding certain situations. Sometimes, well, because you're in a state in which you don't really think, but you do most often, or you freeze. Either one of those two situations, or maybe a third one, I don't know. But yeah, well, kind of like on drugs. You know, you just don't really think what you're doing, but you're just doing because you kind of are forced to do so.
Because of the adrenaline.
Well, probably.
Mostly.
Most.
But there's a difference between situational
Good and bad stress.
between situational stress and chronic stress. Do you think chronic stress can also be, or let's say non-situational stress or non-on-the-spot stress? Because you can be stressed, for example, if someone is in a car accident and you are put under a lot of stress because you need to help, and there it can be helpful because, of course, you're doing something instead of thinking about it. But on the other hand, you can also be stressed because you have a lot of deadlines due, for example. Do you think the second kind of stress can also be helpful?
When you're having a deadline you have to meet?
For example?
Yeah, I think so.
Because?
Well, I mean, you are going to be in a state in which you are going to be the most productive, probably. When you do not have that deadline, you probably, well, maybe the quality is going to be better, but the quality in and of itself is, it's another discussion. Anyway.
Do you think that concept works for everyone? That under stress, they're performing better? Because for me personally, I'm not.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say performing better, but probably more efficient. You're probably going to be way faster when you're just having a deadline to meet. Let's say tomorrow you have to have a project done. It's probably going to be done in some or the other way. If the quality is going to be good, probably not really. Depends. But
probably, but I don't think that's really possible for every kind of person. Because there are people who cannot handle stress at all, who will just drown in the sea of mental breakdowns and they won't get it done.
Yes, that's true.
But I agree that there can be some benefits that kind of boost you in doing what you do and in doing it faster or maybe more efficient.
But I think, because once at work I talked to a guy and he was like, he really hated school because of all the stress. He attended the same school as I did. Wasn't that stressful for me, and just, regarding my personality and whatnot.
You have very good time management, and not a lot of people have that.
Well, and probably a pretty high threshold of or stress threshold, I'd say. But I think everyone needs to have a certain threshold of, or some stress this person can resist, because there's always going to be stress. And if you're unable to do so, you're probably not going to be able to do any job.
I agree.
Well, maybe not any job. Maybe you can be a trash man or whatever. Is this even, are they called trash man?
I was just thinking garbage disposal worker. I don't know.
Yes, that sounds a bit more eloquent. No. But yeah, I think that everyone needs to have a certain threshold. So
I agree. To be a functioning member of society.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever this may mean. Whatever function may be.
Well, functioning as in contributing something to society.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're working, I don't know.
I feel like in our society,
there's not a lot of jobs that you're contributing a lot to society to then.
But I feel like whenever you're working officially, this is seen as contributing to society. People who don't find jobs or have difficulty to find a job are often seen as people not wanting or trying hard enough to contribute to society. Which I think is unfortunate, because a lot of times people are just unable to find jobs and lack the possibilities to find them or to access them, really. Also in context of education.
Well, yes, but I mean, there are plenty of jobs you can do without any education, quite.
But those people still decline on you if there's another person who has a better education.
Okay. Or a person that's more available, maybe for work or whatnot. But what was the original question?
Contributing
to society.
Working as contributing to society.
But most often, I'd say indirectly through taxes.
Well, in a financial viewpoint. But I meant more of like a moral viewpoint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Because I just thought, I mean, when you're working at a bank, yes, you probably have to deal with people. So in this sense, you kind of are contributing to society itself, like directly. Also as a designer, because you're doing work for people. Or for company, but also people then in the end. But regarding taxes, I mean, if they are used usefully or sensibly, then you're doing that.
Do you have control over what's
I just want to say,
taxes?
No, definitely not. But it's a bit unfortunate sometimes. Even though I don't really know where our taxes are going to, or just used for. But I think in general, I mean, this is something that a lot of rich people are kind of talking about, and this is also my opinion. Yes, they don't want to pay taxes. No, contributing something to society or the world, as in a sense of you made a lot of money, but you're probably gonna be happier when you've done something good for other people or society, compared to just only being rich.
Of course, because we're human after all, and helping someone else makes us feel better.
Yeah. Which is actually pretty interesting, because why? Why does it feel good? Besides the fact that we were born to be in groups and whatnot, and then regarding that, it would make sense, but...
That's a difficult question, but a very interesting one.
I think so as well. A lot of evolutionary psychology or something.
I believe so. Well, I don't even know if humans would be called herd animals or herd mammals. But we do live in clusters or in groups. So that would make sense. The thought of sharing as a part of evolutionary benefit. Because one human alone wasn't going to survive. So they had to look after the whole group.
Well, but at this point, I mean, you can survive alone.
Yeah, but I think those evolutionary factors are still deep-rooted, deep-seated in our genes even.
So what about people then that really do not care about being in a group, maybe even having friends? Is this then abnormal? Or is it just...
I think abnormal, first of all, is a very harsh word or a very difficult word to use. Because what is normal and what is abnormal. But I think it's a difference there's a difference between wanting to spend time alone and being alone most of the time and not having lots of friends, and totally secluding yourself from society and not leaving the house at all and only eating like conserved food and everything, because you don't want to go to the store to interact with people. So I think there's a large difference between, because that actually might be abnormal if you lock yourself up in your room and don't come out for 3 months to interact with people. Because after all, we do need the human interaction. Yeah. Experiments have proven that without human affection and interaction, we don't live very long.
Isn't it like very, I mean, as unhealthy as, I don't know, smoking a pack of cigarettes or something? There was a study, I guess, around that.
I don't know about that, but
like, I guess, or it might have been also about being, no, it was about human interaction, being social there. It's even unhealthier than smoking or some shit.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually really, really, really fucking unhealthy. I mean, there have also actually been studies with babies. Babies, like, being with their mother and not being with the mother, and some babies just died.
Yeah, that's the study I was referring to, the experiment I was referring to. Exactly.
Which is extreme, actually. I mean, you're having everything. You're having food, you're having something to drink, you're nourished and whatnot,
you
but
have
still...
the basic things you need to survive, essentially. Food, water, shelter.
Maslow's needs pyramid or some shit, whatever it's called. Yeah, that's... Even though this is, I mean, a debate in and of itself, because, you know, there are certain pyramids where sex is on the very bottom as being something that you really need. And sometimes it is, like, a bit...
ranked less important. Or a bit higher up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, like, you don't really need sex, do you? Like, need.
Well, from an evolutionary point of view, yes.
Yeah, but...
Because the central thought of, I feel like, every race or animal or whatever... Is reproduction.
Which is actually very interesting. Because back in the days, speaking of, I don't know, ancient times, like 5,000 years ago or something, some people would have not been able to reproduce because they would just have died because of maybe they're so unathletic that they were no useful part of a group or wouldn't have been able to survive themselves. But nowadays they can survive, or they do survive, because there are not threats anymore and whatnot, and they also can reproduce. So, well, these genes, are they useful?
That's a difficult question, because do we look at humans as useful, or do we look at humans as human beings with emotions?
Nowadays, yes, the latter part, of course, or the latter option, of course. But I just find it interesting that that potentially bad genes, quote unquote, very quote unquote, emphasize quote unquote, that you can, you know, just reproduce with having fucked up genes, theoretically.
Of course. I mean, earlier on it was a lot about survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
That was basically the golden rule, but nowadays...
and natural selection and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And nowadays it's pretty much survival of everyone, which of course
somehow,
for the bigger part, I think it's great because there's a lot of loss and a lot of emotional trauma that can be prevented through that. But of course
What do you mean exactly?
Loss as an emotional loss, because for example in the Middle Ages in
okay, sure.
Earlier on, it was like the standard to lose 1 or 2 kids per family because they couldn't survive because they weren't fit enough. So
that's true.
I think that's a great part of today's science, that pretty much the biggest part of all babies survive in places with good infrastructure, I have to add, of course.
Yes, but even nowadays there's a lot of what do you call them? I guess there's a word for it.
A high infant mortality rate?
Yes.
So many infants die when they are born?
Still, despite our medical advancements and whatnot. It's actually staggering
Really?
Yeah, it's actually it's. I mean, there are a ton of people also in like I don't know them, but you know about them that they exist. So I mean, friends of family or whatnot that they had
Miscarriage.
Miscarriage, and sometimes even several times and whatnot. And of course, this is fucked up, but it is interesting that it's the case. Still the case.
I think, well, miscarriages are a very, very sensitive topic, I think. Because it's very emotionally exhausting.
Yes,
and
I think so,
painful for everyone who has to go through that. But I think talking about infants that are already born and born healthily, compared to the Middle Ages, for example, I think a lot more survive nowadays, of course.
Sure. Because isn't a miscarriage, isn't it only when it's already dead when it's born?
That's a stillborn, yeah. A miscarriage is a miscarriage is, if I'm correct, when you miscarry the child before it's due, like a month prior to the birth date, for example.
And what about it dying when it is born?
I don't know if there's a name for it. You mean when it's delivered?
Yes.
I don't know if that's a name for it. When the baby is born and it has no pulse, that's called a stillborn. And I think it's really beautiful that whenever a woman has a child that's healthy and is alive after a miscarriage, they call it a rainbow baby.
There's an English word for that as well.
A rainbow baby. And I think that's cute.
Isn't that German word as well?
I don't know if that's in German too.
There is something, I guess. Rainbow baby. Now all of a sudden you're the most fucked up chat there is. No, just joking. No. But I just realized that, well, medical advancement may not necessarily directly contribute to not having a miscarriage, because it may be just about you. I mean, because medical advancements or just medicine just is in control of the child after it was delivered. Not while okay, the born process, the delivery process itself, of course, as well. But
of course, it's also monitored throughout those 9 months that you carry your child, with checkups and everything.
But you can't do anything anyways if there is something going on, or.
I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that, but the miscarriage, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know of a miscarriage that was medically induced. But I don't think you should particularly say that the mother has to do something with it, because that's so much trauma already. So I don't think telling someone
it's about you. Okay,
this was your fault.
Sure, it's not gonna help.
It's helping in any way.
Especially because
I guess to be careful with that.
I guess one doesn't even know unless you kind of start drinking and shit. Then, well, obvious shit. It's not good for your baby.
Obviously, but I think even stress can lead to miscarriage. Yeah, extreme stress and bad mental health or deteriorating bad mental health. And of course, things like falling down the stairs, or having a car accident.
Yeah.
Any kind of stress on the baby, pretty much.
And the body, probably.
And the body, of course.
But there are still mothers that are doing like marathons and shit like that.
That's extreme. There's also one woman, I don't remember what her career path was exactly, or if she was famous or something, I don't know. But she was size 0 when she had her baby.
Size 0?
Yeah. That's like below confection size 32.
Isn't it 32, 34? 36, isn't it?
38, 40, 42.
Yeah. So not actually having any like.
She was
belly
really
roundness.
skinny.
But the kid survived and everything was fine? Or?
I don't remember. Oh. I don't know how that ended or how that went, but I remember her being on the news and the doctors telling her that she has to gain weight or else it's going to be very dangerous for her and the baby.
Yeah, I mean, if you yourself kind of undernourished already, well, what about the baby? If the baby does not get any food, unless it gets all the food that you're eating, and you're kind of eating the same as before, and before you've been like just normal weight and shit.
She's been skinny already.
Okay.
But it's very dangerous to eat so little when you're pregnant too, because the baby needs all those minerals like calcium too.
Yeah, sure.
And if you don't eat enough, the baby's gonna take it from your bones.
Oh.
Which makes your bones porous. And you have an increased risk of
osteoporosis.
I think. I'm not sure about that, so I don't pin me down on that, but I think that's the case.
I didn't know about that. That's fucked up, actually. Like a parasite in your tummy.
Stop.
Is there actually...
You can't say that.
Is there actually like a percentage of how much of the food you're eating the baby gets? Is it like half?
I don't know.
Is there something like that?
I don't know about that.
Should be interesting.
I'm sure you'd find something when you Google it.
That should be really interesting. How to lose weight? Just be pregnant.
I don't think it works that way. Most women actually gain weight when they get pregnant.
But they most often lose it anyways afterwards.
Afterwards.
Question mark.
Afterwards, sometimes. If they breastfeed, especially.
Yeah, isn't it then just the milk that's the weight? Can I say that? Is this possible?
I don't think so, because you only have milk when the baby's delivered.
Ah.
I don't think you have it throughout the pregnancy, because what would be the use of it?
Well, sure, but I thought, to start this production cycle somewhat, does it take a bit of time, or is it just instant?
No, of course it takes time, but I don't think that's not
9 months.
all the weight. For example, my sister gained, I don't know how much, but she gained a few kilograms with her second son. Because, of course, when you're pregnant, you allow yourself chocolate. You allow yourself a second midnight snack, for example.
And you can't move that much.
Especially,
or that well.
Exactly. Or that well. So many women have a little bit of weight left afterwards. But many of them, as you said, get rid of that via breastfeeding.
Isn't it kind of...
For example?
Being in a certain state, or the particular state of being pregnant, and you're in this little ecosystem of some kind, and afterwards, after you're not anymore in this ecosystem, quote unquote, everything returns to just before, which was your normal weight and whatnot. It's
as
the
for
same
the mother.
Yes, the same as breaking your leg or something, or having any other fracture.
I don't think so.
No, in terms of gaining and losing weight. Of course, when you're not able to move, you're gaining weight.
I'm not sure about that. I've heard about women having their metabolism changed up after their pregnancy. So before, for example, they had a very fast metabolism and they didn't gain a lot of weight even though they ate much. And after their pregnancy, their metabolism was completely different. And they gained weight from eating the tiniest amount of chocolate.
Okay, and with this thing, since we're already, I guess, 24 minutes in, apparently, as my smartphone says, I'm gonna end the episode there. Might be continued. Probably gonna forget about all of the things not all of the things we talked about, but
some.
But anyway, bye bye.